Hello and welcome. In this quite short video, we're just going to quickly look at an advanced use of awk, how to have multiple expressions in a single awk statement. So this will make our awk command significantly more powerful. This does assume, though, that you're already familiar with the basics of how awk works. I don't actually have videos on the basics of awk yet. I probably will have to do that sometime in the near future. Assuming you are already familiar with the basics of awk, you've seen it's useful, but there's not a whole lot you can do with just a single statement. You almost certainly need more than one expression, more than one set of things that you're going to do. All you need to do to have multiple expressions in your one awk command is, after the first one, put in a semicolon, and then you can just have another awk expression. This is very similar to what you've seen on the command line, where you can type a command, semicolon, another command. All you're doing is telling awk, when you encounter this other kind of data on the line, here's an action to do. Now, theoretically, the semicolon isn't 100% absolutely required. You could potentially just type one expression, space, another expression, but there's the possibility that awk might get confused. For example, if you're using a default condition or the default instruction, it may not like the structure of what you're writing. If you always put in the semicolon, you never have to worry about that. So we could awk, and of course in single quotes so it doesn't get interpreted by our shell, our actual awk expressions, in this case more than one, a condition to look for, an instruction of what to do when you find a record that matches that, and then a semicolon and another awk expression, and potentially a semicolon and another awk expression, and a semicolon and another awk expression, for however many you actually want to have. And of course ending off with cars. Yes, I'm using this cars file that, it's been used as an example for decades at least. I honestly have no clue where it originally came from. My local copy I actually saved as cars.txt. There it is. And of course you've seen, so you could do a single expression in your awk statement. For example, if the we'll use the same example used in the slides. So if the first field in the record is Ford, we're going to print, how about $2, $3, and $5, which should be the model, the year, and the price. Right? That works. That does some stuff, but when we're really using awk, when we want to make something more complicated, we will need more than what a single expression can do. So all we do, add a semicolon and add our other expression. Maybe we also want to see if if $5 is less than 4,000. Print I want to say $0 will get us the whole line. It will, yes. Okay. Just a little bit rusty. So now we're getting the entries that we had before. So the ones where the first field was a Ford. We get to see the model. I'm trying to highlight, not resize. The model, the year, the price. In the second example, when we give a second expression, in addition to that data, for any record, if the price is less than 4,000, print out the whole line. Now this is admittedly a pretty trivial example, but this is just a building block that we're going to combine with a few other building blocks later on to start writing some more complicated and powerful awk statements. What you might notice about this data, which is on my next slide, is when you're using multiple expressions, awk is going to work very similar to the way sed does, if you're familiar with it. It reads a record from your input, your file that you're getting your data from. It puts that through the first expression, and of course if the condition matches, we do whatever the instruction is. Then it passes that to the next expression, and if the condition matches, we do whatever that expression says. And then it would pass that still same piece of data to the next expression and do what that says. Once we run out of expressions, then awk reads the next record from its data, from its source data, puts that through the first expression. If it matches, we do whatever it says. Whether it does or not, we move on to the next expression, potentially do what it says, move to the next expression, and so on until we run out of expressions, and then it grabs the next record out of the source data and goes through that whole process again. So if we look back at our example, so we know the first line in the file was this Plim Fury 77732500. So when awk was reading this, it checked. Does the first field match that regular expression? No, it doesn't. So we didn't actually print fields 2, 3, and 5. But there's multiple expressions, so still with that same line, is the fifth field less than 4,000? It is. So we print the whole line, and we see the whole line. The next field in the source data, Chevy Nova 7963,000. Okay, is the first field Ford? It's not, so we don't do anything. Pass it to the next expression. Is the fifth field less than 4,000? It is, so print the whole line. I realize there may not be... Okay, I'm going to skip down a bit. For example, this Volvo line, you'll notice we don't see that in our resulting output. Because by the time awk gets there, it reads that line. Is the first field Ford? It's not, so we don't do anything. Is the fifth field less than 4,000? No, it's somewhat greater, so we don't do anything there, and that data just doesn't make it into the output. If I modify my cars file for a second, and yeah, maybe there's some significant damage to this particular vehicle. We'll just drop that fifth field to 3,500. When I run my command again, we're going to see something interesting with that line. Oh, it helps if I actually run it with the right file. There we are. Sorry, just trying to find that in my output, which for some reason was way harder than it should have been. When we're looking at that file and it reaches that line, let me just cat cars2 again. This is the particular record that I want to draw your attention to, Ford LTE 8315 3500. When I ran that command, when awk reaches that record, that line, it says, is the first field Ford? It is. So we print fields 2, 3, and 5, and we see LTD 833500, right? Just because we printed that doesn't mean we're done with that record, though. There's more expressions. So still with that line, awk goes to the next expression. Is the fifth field less than 4,000? In this case it is. I deliberately modified the file so it is. So it will also print out the whole record. So just a really important feature of the way awk does deal with multiple expressions. I don't want to say they're independent of each other, because potentially you could do something in this line that actually changes or in the first expression, that changes your record, that might affect what happens with the rest. But barring doing that, if you're just, say, reading and printing values, that expression or that record will get handled by every expression. Until, of course, you're out of records, and then awk is done. So what we've looked at in this video is just a quick expansion onto the capabilities of awk. This seems trivial and straightforward. This is a step towards making some really powerful text filters that can make complicated changes quite easy to do. Of course, I have several more videos in this series, so I will see you there.